Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. What are we going to taste today? With your host, David Kaye, special guest and sommelier. Spend some time on Hollywood and Wine.
It's time for Hollywood and Wine.
The great voice of Jack Daniels there. So, welcome everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Here's Pierson Ryan, our Somm to the Stars, and from Sonoma, California, Trombetta Wines, the amazing winemaker, Erica Stancliff. Thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me.
This is outstanding. So, I have to say, we had this. There's going to be a very special guest jumping on here for you, because you had mentioned a couple of cartoons that you grew up with as a kid. And before that happens, and when our special guest logs in, we have all the Trombetta wines back here lined up. Pierson will display and hold to the camera what wines we're tasting. And before we get to, you said, what were some of your favorite cartoons?
Oh, well, I loved Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers. Pinky and the Brain was one of my favorites. And
Stop right there, because a very special guest has jumped on. Mr. Rob Paulsen, the voice, the famous voice of Pinky. Rob, welcome.
Hello, this is, well, it's not really Rob. That's my disguise name. Because the fact is that what I understand is that Erica Stancliff has a crush on Pinky. Now, if you look at me like this, I'm not nearly as handsome. However, if you close your eyes and I say, Lord, then of course you know it's really me. I dress like this, Erica, because as you know, I'm remarkably handsome, my two giant big teeth notwithstanding. And everywhere I go, when I dress like me, I can't go anywhere, even in the time of cholera. Corona. Love in the time of Corona. And I would like one after my wine, thank you very much. But when I dress like this, nobody pays attention. So I can do it all incognito. But let's suffice to say that I am so excited to meet you, my dear.
I am so excited.
How cool is that?
It's amazing. We always joke around in the winery, like, what are we doing tonight, Brain? Taking over the world, me and...
That's what I said. I thought, Dave says, I know, I'll call a wino. If you're going to fall in love with the lad mouse, you might as well be drinking. That's what I say.
That's right, exactly.
That's the reason. That's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that is so great. And David's filled me in on Hollywood and Wine. It's a genius idea. And speaks so highly of you, Erica. And the fact that you even take a moment to acknowledge a goofy old guy who makes his living doing what used to get him in trouble in high school with no chemical inducement. I am profoundly flattered. And I can tell you also that our buddy Maurice LaMarche, who's the brain, would have absolutely jumped on the call, but his voice is a little worn out, not COVID related, but he's proud enough of the brain to not want to do it in a half-assed version, if you know what I'm saying. So,
Love it. Oh, I'm so excited.
Thank you very much. Have you been watching Pinky and the Brain since you've been a little tiny girl?
Yeah, when I was a little kid, it was always the whole Warner Brother hours and Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, and then of course Looney Tunes were the main things that I watched.
Yeah.
Animaniacs, Rob. Animaniacs.
You know, yeah, you're like, hello, Erica. I'm also yakking. So there you go. And I mean, look, if you're going to drink wine, you might as well drink it in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean. I've drunk 2 wine, and it's true. Yeah. So thank you. And you know what's really cool is that due to lovely people like you and millions of others, Mr. Spielberg decided, you know what? People really still love Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, so we're doing a bunch of new ones this year.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Great.
So we've not yet been able to afford David Kaye,
Well, one day, Robert, one day.
He insists on being paid in American dollars. He's really learned his lesson. And I thought if we could get him for a couple hundred large Canadian, we'd be great. But he insists on American dough.
That's right. Hey, I got good news. We got your scale.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you so much, you guys, for even paying attention all these years. And thank you, David, for giving me this opportunity to chat with my new girlfriend. I should share the good news with Brian.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for popping on, Rob.
All right.
My pleasure, you guys. Take care. Happy
Take
drinking.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yes, you too.
Bye, sweetie. Take care.
Bye.
That's fantastic. So, Erica, what do you think of that?
Well, so now I think I'm gonna have to make harvest shirts that have some Pinky and the Brain quotes on them. I think that's what I'm doing now.
That's pretty great. I'm right there with you, Erica. I watched all the Animaniacs and Pinky and Brain. I mean, it was just, that's what you watched every day, you know?
I just want to say, on Hollywood and Wine, we started this thing because all my friends are in the animation, and I do a lot of cartoons. I've worked with Rob a number of times, and every time I'm in the booth with Rob doing a cartoon, we did some Ben 10 together and some Transformers. I look at him and go, what am I doing in this room?
Yeah.
So on Hollywood and Wine, we had to bring in a famous voice, and you got one of the top ones, yeah. And I'm so thrilled he was able to.
Thank you. That was
now, in the spirit of Hollywood and Wine, let's start drinking and
wine.
And Erica, before we let Pierson taste the first wine, give us a quick little rundown of Trombetta and how that started.
Of course. So Trombetta Family Wines, as you can see my beautiful branding here with my barrel. My mother and I started the brand back in 2010. We started with a whopping 500 cases of Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir from the now Petaluma Gap AVA and Gap's Crown. And eventually just kind of grew really slowly. My parents were home winemakers. My dad had a day job. My mom worked in hospitality and marketing for the wine industry. And my mother worked for most notably Paul Hobbs, who became my mentor. So I went to school, got my degree in winemaking, traveled internationally all over the world, worked in Argentina, worked in Napa, worked for some other companies based out of Italy, and found my way back into production. Took over as winemaker in 2014 and just haven't stopped running ever since.
Wow.
So we're at a whopping 1,200 cases now. So we're still pretty small, but Chardonnay, Pinot, and Rosé Pinot Noir is what we focus on.
Well, I say the small production vineyards are nice, Erica, because you put a little bit more love into all the bottles because you don't make as many. So
yeah, exactly.
Whenever we go visit the Trombettas, it's such a joy because Erica's father, Roger, is one of my favorite people on the planet. Of course, her mother, I'm in love with her mother, and because she's Italian like my wife, there's a Sicilian connection. But your dad is hilarious. There's not even a hello. It's like, how about Chardonnay?
You walk in the house, he's like, "Here's your glass."
That's right.
It's built like right here.
Yeah, it's I call it the Roger pour.
Everyone calls it the Roger pour. It's like, I think he needs his own wine dictionary term.
Oh, outstanding. So
a normal glass is not 8 ounces?
You get 2 glasses out of a bottle with the Roger pour.
That's right. That's perfect. So let's start. Pierson, take it away. Let's talk about this first rosé here.
The first wine we have, yes. So this is their Trombetta 2019 Rosé. You can see I got a little red wine on the label there. This is a beautiful rosé, Erica. 100% Pinot, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, really, really nice. And this is your really kind of first, or you said second vintage, a little bit more production though, however?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It definitely has those really great strawberry, watermelon notes in there. It tastes like it has that kind of nice plushness to it as well. It's not super dry. I love it. I think it's fantastic. What clones do you use for your Pinot?
So this kind of has the rosé is kind of like the accumulation of all the Pinots, basically. So there's Pomard, most notably from my parents' house. My parents' property has 220 vines of Pinot Chardonnay and a little bit of Merlot on it. So that Pinot, we got about half a ton, goes direct press for the rosé, so Pommard. Then my whopping 5 barrels that I made of this wine, 125 cases. Then the Gap's Crown is a mix of 115 and 667. And the other Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir that went into this had mixes of Pommard, 113, 23, 828, like just some of the most
all the good ones,
random clones that people don't know about, but are absolutely amazing. So,
now, when people talk about clones, people go, clone, what the hell is with clones? So these are from basically snippets from actual vines from France that made their way here.
Yeah.
And planted on rootstocks here.
I have an awesome analogy for clones that people seem to really like, is because, I relate everything to animals or food. It's like one of the two. So I always say that Pinot Noir is the breed of dog, like a Labrador, for example, and then the clone is the silver lab, the chocolate lab, the yellow lab, the black lab. They're all the same, but they're all very different at the same time. But it's the same dog.
Good way of putting it. I like that.
Well, and what's for people want to know, like, it's not somebody going, shh, what's happening in the background of the winery there?
Here, let me show you. So I'm in the barrel room, and as you can see up here, we have our glycol machine, which keeps the barrel room at 57 degrees. Mm-hmm. And then we have a dry fog emitter, which is that little thing right there, which actually keeps the humidity at, above 65%, because barrels are porous. So they need to stay nice and moist. Otherwise, they'll dry out and they won't be able to hold wine anymore. So it's the humidifier dry fog that you hear. Let me see if I can. You can see it in action right there.
I see that. I miss it. I miss being up there because I in that barrel room. I go, oh my god, I want to be in there because But so this is outstanding. This is really great, and it's soft. Did you leave this on the lees or something? It was.
So it was half of it was barrel fermented, so done in neutral oak, which had a lot of lees contact, and the other half was in a stainless steel tank at about 50 degrees. Which really helps with, even though it's lush and it's really round in the mouth, you still get some nice acid. Exactly.
Really
keep all those nice fresh fruit aromatics. So.
Perfect. All right. So how about move on to the shards?
Yeah.
Should we clear the room?
If you want to clear the room, we usually clear the room on the show. Clear the room. Pierson, clear the room.
Cheers.
Room has been cleared. All right.
Room is cleared. So our next set that we'll jump into Chardonnay.
Yeah.
So we have 2 beautiful Chardonnays here today. We'll do a little vintage difference side by side from their Indindoli vineyard in the Russian River Valley. See, we have, there we go, that's terrible. There, 15 and 18. So, Eric, I'll let you go ahead and jump in. Me and David were kind of looking at them a little bit beforehand. The 18, we feel, has that really nice kind of citrusy, kind of lemon zesty, lemon curd kind of melon richness to it. And then the 15 kind of starting to develop a little bit of, honey notes and kind of like richer characteristics to it.
We drink the old one first or the new one first? What do we taste first?
I poured the old one first. But...
I would go 15 first. Yeah, and we'll work our way up.
Yeah. So, fun little backstory real fast. Carmine Indindoli, tiny little vineyard. Like, we're talking sub 10-acre property, under 5 acres of actual vines. He is the person who taught my parents how to make wine in the 80s. He was an engineer at Hewlett-Packard, where my mother and father met and were working. And after he retired as an engineer, he created his own vineyard management company and kind of retired, semi-retired. He's never going to retire. But he taught all these engineers from Hewlett-Packard in the 80s how to make wine. And so I always blame Carmine. I'm like, this is your fault. This is all your fault. Gotta do this. And so anyways, Carmine actually in 2015 approached my family and said, do you guys want to make Chardonnay from my property? So the 15 is the inaugural vintage of Indindoli Chardonnay that we have made. And I love it because it's right in the heart of the Russian River Valley. I mean, we're talking 1.5 miles from the river, lots of fog, really nice little banana belt where it is. This tends to be the first Chardonnay to ever ripen out of the wines that I make, it's actually usually the first one picked, just because it does have a little bit of a warmer growing season. And, you know, as far as my Chardonnays are concerned, I do pretty much the same treatment on all of them because I want the vineyard characteristics to shine. They're all barrel fermented, but only 25% of that is new French oak. The rest of it is neutral French oak. So, you know, I use coopers that are more about mouthfeel and enhancing the palate versus you can smell the oak, you can smell the spice, you can taste the spice. Like, you still get some nice oak characteristics, but it's not overpowering the fruit, in my opinion.
Wow.
And for people that don't know, a cooper is somebody that makes the wine barrels.
Yeah, so
throughout that little wine. I have them
right here.
Yeah.
Kazoo is one of the coopers that we use, and then there's like information on what kind of oak they used and what forest. And then here's another one, Francois Frere, which is probably one of the most recognizable coopers for a lot of people. But I use, you know, probably about 5 to 6 different coopers because I think they all have something really nice to offer. So I want, you know, it's the tool in my arsenal, and so I try to use as many as possible.
And so, Erica, you said that, you know, you've worked in a lot of different places down in Argentina and up in Napa. Obviously, people know, you know, the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are kind of the royalty grapes over there in the Burgundy region, which kind of not a lot of people realize is that, you know, Sonoma, Napa, and Burgundy kind of are on that same latitude-longitude line.
Yes.
Do you kind of try to make your wines a little more stylistically like Burgundy? Or do you kind of, I know you'd only do about 25% oak, so
yeah,
you do a lot of oak over in Burgundy.
Yeah, so, you know, growing up, my dad got wine from all over the world, Burgundy, Oregon, California, because he's a huge Pinophile. And so I actually grew up loving the aromatics of Domaine Drouhin, Oregon, so obviously the stateside version of Joseph Drouhin in Burgundy. And I love the aromatics, but I always thought it was too thin and acidic in the mouthfeel for me. It was just a little too much. Sure. So I tried to really find a balance between what can this region produce plus have that beautiful acidity and that balance that so many of the old world wines have, because they've been making wine for obviously so long that they've, you know, pretty much perfected their method of how to create a balanced wine. And I think here in California, like, we're still kind of the Wild West of the wine world. It's like, hey, I'm going to make this style. I'm going to make this style. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it's like, I just want the vineyard to speak. I want there to be beautiful acidity. I want it to be food friendly. And yeah,
it's incredibly a food friendly wine. It's just wonderful. And it has that, it's just soft, but it's got that, again, it's got that brightness, that electricity, that acid. And again,
it has a great minerality in it as well. Erica, we did get a quick question. It says, do you match coopers with particular wines?
Yes and no. So I have certain coopers that I only use for Pinot or a specific vineyard. Like Francois Frere, I'll typically throw on the Gap's Crown Chardonnay and maybe in Dindoli. But for example, like Demi is my white wine cooper. I love using Demi barrels. So I do definitely have certain vineyards that I tend to go heavier on a specific cooper than another. But once again, like, I'm trying to use them. Oak is a great spice in your cabinet to have with cooking, for example. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to throw too much of one thing in because then it could be a little one-dimensional. Sure. But I do kind of keep it in a parameter of, I know I really like this on this wine. I know I really like this on this wine. They seem to go well together. And so I'll kind of take the path it leads me down.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah. I got to say hi to a few people who have joined us. Nick Gouda's there. I got Jim Torres. Who else? Wendy Shapero. Hi, Wendy. Michael Schwartz. Hi, Michael. George Raymond. Josie Fatels from Kelowna, British Columbia. Got Winnipeg on here. George Raymond says, Pinky's my hero. He's our hero too, man. Scott Primo back in Chatham, Ontario, Canada. And Susan Bazeri, Susan is here in the Studio City. Carson Beck is joining us. So we got some people. Any questions, guys, on Facebook, let us know. So we're on to the 18?
We'll go on to the 18 now. Yeah, I want to let people know. You can kind of see by the glasses, this is the 15 here, and this is the 18. You can tell for you know, not avid wine drinkers, when a white wine gets older, it gets a little darker, you can see here. And then the red wine will get a little lighter that we'll notice when we go.
This Indendoli, this is this 2018. The finish on this is the young one is incredible.
Yeah, this
wow.
18 was I mean, so the joke I always tell people is, you know, Burgundy has 1 to 2 good vintages out of 10, you know, every 10 years. California has 9.5 good vintages out of every 10 because we don't have the hail, we don't have the frost, and we're allowed to use frost protection if we do have frost. Like, it's a different game out here. And
it's always hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
18 was an amazing vintage. Like, the wines are beautiful. And the Chardonnays that I'm noticing, all the 18s, they're super full in the mouthfeel, but they're still really pretty and keep that nice acid driving through. So it was a great vintage for Chard.
That citrus green apple. Yeah, it's soft. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it has those nice little, I was saying, those little melon notes, a touch of a little spice on the finish, but not overwhelming or anything, but just enough you get that little kind of cloviness in there, and a little bit of vanilla in there. It's really, really nice.
And before we move on to the Pinot Noirs, for the Chardonnays, you actually do 4 Chardonnays. You got Gaps Crown, Indendoli, Four Brothers, Peterson, correct?
Yes.
And so we tasted the Indendoli. So how many, you don't have, there's not a ton of cases of this, right?
No, I mean, the Indendoli, I believe, was like 110 cases, so it's still
That's it.
Pretty tiny, yeah. And, you know, the thing about the Chardonnays, for example, is they are all really small productions. Like, the largest production we did was Peterson, which is 300 cases, which still is not a lot in the grand scheme of things when you think about wine. And, you know, 18, we have anywhere from 50 case production to the 300 case production of the Chardonnay. All of the vineyards are different AVAs, different regions, different clones, but they're all made stylistically the same so that they're all unique and different in their own right. And yeah.
I was going to ask you that about the 15 as well, Erica, because, you know, 15 people know is a very low yield year, and that was your first vintage. So on the 15, how many cases did you produce for the 15?
We did about 100. So thankfully, Chardonnay actually in 2015 didn't seem to have any yield loss. It was just the Pinot. Our Pinot was down, you know, as we get to the Gaps Crown and whatnot, we'll talk about it. But in 15, Gaps Crown was down by 50%. I would say across the board in Sonoma County, we were down 45%. It was pretty dramatic, but the Chardonnay yield was probably 80 to 95% of normal. So
somebody else said, before we go to the Pinot Noirs, let's see, can Erica show us something else? It's really cool to see the site itself.
Okay, so I'll take you on
do a little virtual tour.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up the Pinot Noir from the 2012.
So this is one of the barrel rooms in Punchdown. Behind that beautiful blue tarp right there is our warm room. So wines that are either still going through malolactic fermentation or still going through some sort of primary fermentation. Guilty, I have a Chardonnay that's not dry yet. It's in the warm room. And the warm room's only at 65 degrees, so it's not like hot. It's just warmer. Now, I'm not going to leave the barrel room purely because the Wi-Fi in here can be a little spotty. This place is an old warehouse that was converted into a winery. You can see one of our beautiful 4 cliffs.
And you're in Sonoma, correct?
I'm in Santa Rosa, actually.
Santa Rosa. Okay, got it.
So, yeah, I'll just touch on this really quickly. We obviously don't need to spend much time on it. But Punchdown is actually in the middle of the Tubbs Fire burn path and somehow did not burn. I don't know how. I mean, I kind of know how, but it's next to Coffee Park, literally 2 houses from it.
I know where you are.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a few different tank rooms. You can kind of see one of the cool wood tanks, and then there's a few different rooms. We have some porta tanks that are getting ready for bottling this next week. Obviously, a lot of different labels are here. So we have a lot of like labels, dry goods, things like that. It looks like the Wi-Fi is actually going to hold, so I'll show you. I'm very jealous of this. One of my best friends who's actually waxing some wine right now. We have eggs and amphoras here, which
eggs.
They're owned by the winery brands who use them. And trust me, I'm trying real hard to get my hands on one of those guys right there because
that's fun. So, because in concrete, if you do a Chardonnay in concrete, there's no, it's very clean. Is that correct? It's a very clean fermentation.
It's a very clean fermentation, and you get a lot more of a, like, for lack of a better term, a chalky mineral mouthfeel to it. Because you still do get, because of the shape, you get a lot of lees, but you're not getting the oxygen, and you're not getting
any of that spice from the barrel.
Exactly. So it's, if you did an unoaked Chardonnay that was cement and stainless, you would have a very full mouthfeel acid-driven Chardonnay, which would be beautiful. It just wouldn't have any of that coffee, clove, baking spice characteristic to it. So I think it's a great addition, and I really want one to add in to the oak, to have some cement and some oak together, but those puppies are a little above budget at the moment.
Oh, got it. We got Jeffrey Thompson here, my buddy, watching from Windsor, one of the wineries, and also who asked a big picture question. We move on to the Pinots before we get to. I just want to.
As we go to the Pinots, let's ask that question.
Yeah, how do you see this unique period where the world is shut down for the first time since before the industrial age affecting next year's wines? Pollution being down, possibly colder temps from carbon emissions being down for at least 4 to 6 months worldwide. Any thoughts on that, Erica?
So the biggest thing with wine is, I mean, the grapes are still growing, the vineyards are still going. Obviously, having clearer skies and fresh air is amazing, and I'm loving the air quality right now. But it really is going to depend on, as far as pollution levels, it depends on when the grape actually starts to go through veraison. So when it changes color from green to purple, because that's when the skins get the thinnest, and that's where they can absorb the toxins from the environment. That's why the fires have been such a big deal, because as that veraison happens, you lose the natural protection on the grape skins. So they absorb the smoke, and that's how you get smoke taint. Now, I mean, right now we're on par. We've had a good amount of water. We're having a great spring. We haven't had, you know, any frost or anything like that. So the growing season looks amazing. My biggest concern with the impact is actually going to be the economic toll it takes on restaurants and retail locations.
Right.
Because that's how we get our wine in front of people who have never heard of us. You know, it's one thing to be a brand and have distribution and be on a shop, but a lot of times people feel comfortable trying a wine they've never heard of before at a restaurant where they can buy a glass. And if that is gone, it's going to be a huge loss, obviously, to all of us, because I'm going to say the first thing I want to do when this is over is go to a restaurant, have a drink, and have a nice meal. Yeah. But it's going to be a huge loss because people who want to experience new wines and try new brands are not going to be able to. It's going to be so much more different. You're going to have to commit to buying that bottle and trying it and hoping you like it, as opposed to having a glass and going, okay, yeah, no, I'll buy the bottle now, or okay, yeah, I'm going to go look this winery up. So that's my bigger concern with this.
And the other trouble, like you have such small production wines, you don't really probably do a lot of retail where people could go and buy.
No.
Yeah.
We're in a handful of retail places. It's mostly restaurants. You know, restaurants have been our greatest advocate.
Somebody here, Carolyn Fazekas, found you. Can't wait for the next week's delivery.
Oh yeah, that's my aunt.
And also, your mom and dad are watching you, and your dad said, "David, you need a Roger pour." So my glass is a little too empty. All right. You know, your mom, Ricky Trombetta, of course, Trombetta Wines, and your mom, and yeah, they're watching tonight, and we just have them here. So let's go, Pierson. Let's go to the Pinots.
So we're on to the Pinots. Yep. So we'll show you. So we're doing two different vintages again. From the Gaps Crown Vineyard, we have our 2012 and then our 2014. As Erica was saying, they're up in the Petaluma Gap AVA, up in Gaps Crown. If people are not familiar, Gaps Crown is kind of like the royalty Pinot, area for wine in California. So
it's incredibly good.
It's pretty phenomenal. So how would you, in 14, you know, people talk about the 14 vintage, Erica, and you said that was your first vintage that you came on to be winemaker. Yes. It was a fantastic year as far as the weather and, consistently all year round for grapes ripening. We know it's really impacted a lot of the bigger, heavier varietals like Cab, Merlot and such. How would you say it did with the Pinot Noir in the 14 vintage as compared to ours.
The color from the 14s is absolutely amazing. You can see, like, these wines are very rich in color. They're dark, dark and brooding, as someone would say, but it's because they're in the Petaluma Gap. And to give you kind of a little background with it, Gap's Crown sits on the southwest facing slope of Sonoma Mountain. So it's right in this kind of boomerang shaped tunnel that we call the Wind Gap, the Petaluma Wind Gap, which now is its own AVA. So wind from the Pacific Ocean comes in, hits off the mountain face, so right where Gap's Crown is, and then goes back down to the San Pablo Bay and kind of swirls into Bennett Valley and Carneros. So that being said, the clusters are really small, the berries are really small, and the skins are really thick. So you have a lot of color and a lot of tannin, but you keep that acidity because it's very cool climate, very long growing season. So 14 was just like, I had clusters showing up that were like this big. Now, just to give you guys an idea, I have very small hands. So when I say it is smaller than my hand, it's like, that's tiny. Like, here's my phone. That's how big the clusters were.
Wow.
They were tiny. And so with that, you get really nice flavor profiles. A lot of that, Gap's Crown kind of has this characteristic nose. You could put 6 of them together on a table and it's like blueberry, pomegranate, red fruit, black fruit, just like a berry cobbler almost. I mean, it's really pretty and it's really intense, but then you get that acid and that minerality in the back and you're like,
that's a great way to put it. It is, I smell it. It is like a nice little cobbler pie.
Yeah.
It is. That's right. I find the 2014, it's a real, I get the minerality and the where it's from in the 2014. The 2012 I still get it. I also get in the 2012 I get this cherry cola.
Oh yeah.
Going on here.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. 12 was another, it's once again to that point that California has so many great vintages out of 10. 12, 13, and 14 were all amazing vintages. Like the 3 of those back to back to back were just like, they were killer, especially in Sonoma County. So, part of the reason I wanted to do 12 versus 14 was because like how the 12 ages, how Gap's Crown ages. I mean, we're sold out of the 10 and we're almost sold out of the 11, but we still have some 12 left and we're going on 7 years in the bottle and it's, pretty good.
Do you guys with your wines, so is 14 is the one we have, is that the current vintage that is out in the market at the moment or is this a library vintage? Do you hold your wines back?
So we do hold our wines back, but 12 is library. It's still available for purchase. We just don't have them actively in the market. 14, we're kind of in the phase of 14 is going out, 15 is coming in. And part of the reason we do that is because, once again, Gap's Crown is such a bigger wine that it needs more time in the bottle just to kind of mellow out those tannins and everything else. And it's still a lovely Pinot, but we tend to hold back that wine longer out of the rest of our wines that we produce.
Well, we pushed over because it's been so great. The really important thing is, I also wanted to say listen, from Joe Catano, Joe and Linda, my beautiful, is it my sister? Yeah, my sister-in-law. They love the labels. It's a beautiful labels on the by the way. And they're near Toronto. They're in Oakville, Ontario, near Toronto.
Nice.
Also, I want to make sure that we give people a chance to buy these wines because, again, this is a award-winning family small boutique winery in Sonoma, one of my favorite areas and one of my favorite AVAs in the world. That's at Petaluma Gap. And how do we let us know how we can get a hold of these wines because there's not much of this available.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So go ahead, please.
So our website is the best way, trombettawines.com. And we do have a wine club, which they get first pick at our lower production wines, like the rosé, for example, we released to our wine club. Only 125 cases, and last year it sold out within a week and a half of being released.
Your dad makes sure that I know that it's time for my allotment. He always emails me, are you run out of wine yet? I go,
You're like, well.
I've been to David's house. There is never a shortage of wine at David's. Never out of wine.
I feel ya. I mean, like, my husband basically has said, if you keep bringing any more wine home, you're going to have to get a storage locker for it, because we have the wine fridge and then like 5 spaces next to the wine fridge and the bottles on top of the wine fridge. And like,
well, these wines are beautiful. Now you've added a rosé in the whole mix, and now we're in real trouble. But again, TrombettaWines.com.
yes.
Wines with an S.
Yes.
Do you ship? Question: do you ship to Canada? Can you? Is that problematic?
That is a Ricky and Roger question. I think we're trying to. Canada has some very interesting trade requirements when it comes to wine and certificates that they need. And so I'm not sure if we've been successful at shipping there, but my mother might know someone who has a Canada license who can get our wine shipped there. So that's a Roger and Ricky.
Okay, we'll now. But again, we mentioned the prices of the wines. Do we? What's because there's not much of them left. What's the ballpark of each of the wines?
So our rosé is 28, and then the Indendoli is 45 to 50, depending on the vintage. I believe we just upped it for the 18 vintage. Just
Very
because,
small allocation here.
yeah, because it's small allocation. Actually, Indendoli's been getting some really killer reviews from wine writers and whatnot. So we're kind of like, okay.
Wow.
And then Gaff's Crown is 65. So we're in the.
Those are great prices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the quality of wine, it's very reasonable when you really think about it. I mean, it's just me in the winery doing this. So
you are amazing. I met your mother first at a tasting. No, I met the two of you first at a Pinot Days in LA here, I think.
Okay.
Many years ago. And I know that you came on in 2014. Your mom is so proud of you. Your mom and dad are so proud of you. But when I started tasting through the wines after you came on and hearing you speak and sort of following your career, you were one of these rock stars up there who people need to keep an eye on, if not already, because you have a real grasp and a real sense of what the soil and you seem to have just a real grasp on letting the fruit do its thing. And I don't think you monkey around too much with it. You know, I think you let it speak for itself. That's what I'm getting from these wines.
Yes. No, I want the wine to speak for itself. I want you to open a bottle of my wine and go, this is Indendoli, this is Gaff's Crown, this is Peterson, whatever vineyard it may be, because I mean, these are all family-owned vineyards. They take a lot of pride in the grapes they farm. I want you to open that, get a sense of place, and not go, oh, that's Erica's winemaking style.
Yeah.
So I really want you to be like, I feel like I'm in Russian River right now. I feel like I'm in Petaluma Gap. I can see that wind, you know.
You're like America's Lalo Bizet. You're like, so I'm not a winemaker. There's no such thing as wine. I do let it speak for itself.
Exactly.
Outstanding. Pierson, before we let her go, any final thoughts, words?
No, I mean, it's just so great having you here, Erica, you know, and, you know, thanks for taking the time out. These wines are fantastic. You know, the only thing I guess I would say is that, you know, what do you view as your ageability on these bottles if people do want to order them and lay them down?
Well, I mean, we opened up a 2010 not too long ago, for example, and that thing is just, it's still got another 5 years on it. These wines, especially, I would say, you know, Chardonnays, it's 5 to 10 years.
Sure.
I mean, I'd be very confident to say that. For the Pinots, I would say 5 to 15, because they just, the acidity, the tannin, everything you have, obviously you can drink them now, but I definitely would say at least hold on to them for a few years in the bottle and open them up.
And we will drink them now. We have both.
Oh, yeah, no, especially now. We're going through more wine than we've ever gone through before.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I gotta say, your mother said that they cannot, unfortunately, ship to Canada, but if you have friends over the border, Roger, we can go to Buffalo.
So go to Buffalo.
Upstate New York area. If you're so Linda, my sister-in-law, you guys can take a drive to see your cousins and then whip over the border and pick up some wine. But yeah, at least not right now. Let's see. Christopher Rowland said the antidote might be the best way to discover the Trombetta range.
We're doing a little special 3-pack for.
Oh yes, please. What do we got?
For those of us sheltering in place and needing a little pick-me-up, we're doing a 3-pack of the Rosé, the Pierson 2018 Chardonnay, and our Sonoma Coast Pinot. So it's a nice little 3-pack. I believe it's $119, and we're doing discounted shipping and everything else. So if you're in California, it's GSO. If you're local, Sonoma, Napa, Marin County, we will deliver to you. So it just really, or curbside pickup, whatever is easiest. So we're just trying to bring a little ray of sunshine while we're all stuck in the house, and trying to keep our minds in the best place possible.
Well, listen, you are a ray of sunshine, and we were supposed to be on a boat together over in the Danube, and of course that's not happening.
My honeymoon.
We'll do that again. So Erica, I know you're busy with you're getting close to bottling here. Thank you so much. These wines are incredible. I mean,
so good.
You and your family, and Pierson, thanks, man. Thanks for drinking with us, and
thank you, David, for everything. It's we're looking forward to hopefully getting back together where we can sit next to each other and drink some wine.
Oh my God, that would be fantastic. So from all of us here at Hollywood and Wine, special guest Rob Paulsen, who's now your new best friend. So thank you again, and don't forget TrombettaWines.com. Look for them when you get a chance. When you're in a restaurant down the road, you can order them. Please support them. They're incredible people, and the wines just are wines of place, which are my favorite type of wines to discover. Sonoma, the Petaluma Gap, in that area. So take care, everybody, and we'll do this again. Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Let's cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Mm.